It was a crisp evening in Washington, D.C., and the nation was abuzz with anticipation. The renowned political talk show, Real Time with Bill Maher, was set to host an unprecedented panel featuring Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett and tech mogul Elon Musk. The episode promised to delve into the intersection of technology, law, and ethics, a topic that had captivated the American public. Bill Maher, known for his incisive wit and unfiltered commentary, was in his element. His political views, often described as a blend of libertarian and liberal ideologies, had recently stirred controversy. Maher's willingness to engage in civil discourse, even with political opponents, had both garnered praise and drawn criticism from his fan base. As the show commenced, Maher introduced his guests with characteristic flair. Justice Barrett, poised and composed, represented the conservative judicial perspective. Elon Musk, ever the provocateur, brought his unique blend of technological insight and unorthodox viewpoints. The stage was set for a riveting discussion. The conversation began with a debate on artificial intelligence and its implications for privacy and civil liberties. Musk, expressing concerns about unchecked AI development, advocated for stringent regulations. Justice Barrett, emphasizing constitutional principles, cautioned against overregulation that could stifle innovation. As the dialogue intensified, Maher steered the discussion toward the ethical responsibilities of public figures. He questioned the transparency of institutions and the accountability of those in power. Musk seized the moment to pivot the conversation. Speaking of transparency, Musk interjected, "I believe the public has a right to know about the affiliations and influences that shape our judiciary." Justice Barrett raised an eyebrow, her demeanor unwavering. "Are you suggesting impropriety, Mr. Musk?" Musk leaned forward, his gaze fixed on Barrett. "Not suggesting, revealing. I have information indicating undisclosed connections between certain justices and influential organizations." The studio fell silent. Maher, sensing the gravity of the moment, pressed for details. "Elon, are you prepared to substantiate these claims?" Musk nodded, producing a tablet from his jacket pocket. He displayed a series of documents, emails, and financial records alleging undisclosed affiliations between Justice Barrett and conservative think tanks. Barrett's composure faltered. "These are confidential communications taken out of context," she asserted. Maher, ever the provocateur, questioned the implications. "Justice Barrett, do these associations compromise your impartiality on the bench?" Barrett stood abruptly, her voice tinged with indignation. "This is a smear campaign under the guise of transparency. I will not be part of the spectacle." With that, she exited the stage, leaving the audience in stunned silence. Maher turned to Musk, who remained seated, unperturbed. "Well, that escalated quickly," Maher quipped, attempting to lighten the mood. The episode concluded with a promise to delve deeper into the revelations in the following week's show. The nation was left grappling with questions about judicial integrity, transparency, and the role of public scrutiny. The next morning, headlines dominated every major media outlet. Elon Musk drops bombshell on live TV, Justice Barrett storms offset. Secrets, screenshots, and the Supreme Court, what did Musk reveal? Social media exploded. Hashtags like hashtag Barrett bombshell, hashtag Musk leaks, and hashtag real time reveal trended across Twitter, now called X, Threads, and TikTok. Clips of the moment Justice Amy Coney Barrett left the stage mid-discussion had gone viral, garnering millions of views overnight. Even typically apolitical viewers couldn't look away. For Elon Musk, this wasn't just another media appearance. It was a strategic move. In the weeks prior, he'd been increasingly vocal about what he called the shadow bureaucracy, an alliance of elite institutions that, in his view, hindered progress under the guise of tradition and law. This wasn't his first feud with a government body, but this one had implications far beyond SpaceX launch delays or Tesla factory regulations. Behind the scenes, Maher's producers were in crisis mode. While the ratings had surged, breaking viewership records, they were now under pressure from both the left and right. Liberal legal experts criticized the ambush-style tactic, arguing that it undermined judicial independence. Conservative voices, meanwhile, condemned Musk's tech billionaire ego and accused Maher of orchestrating a leftist takedown. Bill Maher himself found the reaction both amusing and alarming. On a follow-up podcast, he stated, "Look, I'm not here to destroy anyone's reputation. But if we're going to talk about ethics in public service, no one should be off limits. Not even the robed gods of the Supreme Court. If that makes me controversial, so be it. But what exactly did Musk reveal? Though the full content of the documents remained under wraps, several leaked slides surfaced. They appeared to show Justice Barrett had accepted speaking engagements at private, off-the-record retreats funded by a conservative nonprofit linked to anonymous donors, events which were never publicly disclosed in her financial disclosures. Also included were internal memos from legal clerks questioning the impartiality of certain decisions related to tech antitrust cases. Worse yet, one email, dated back to 2021, suggested that Barrett had consulted indirectly with individuals affiliated with a lobbying firm that had ties to major pharmaceutical companies. While no law explicitly barred such interactions, the optics were damaging. In response, the Supreme Court released a rare public statement. Justice Barrett has always upheld the integrity, independence, and impartiality required of her office. Any suggestion to the contrary is unfounded and reckless. But damage control was already failing. On Capitol Hill, Democratic senators began floating the idea of a Judicial Transparency Act, a new bill aimed at requiring justices to disclose any and all off-bench engagements, gifts, or associations. Republican leaders, on the other hand, accused Musk of interfering with the judiciary and called for an investigation into how he obtained private communications. Musk, in typical fashion, fired back on X. When a Supreme Court justice storms off because the public sees the truth, you know we have a problem. No one is above transparency. He followed it up with another post. If I wanted to destroy trust in the courts, I'd do nothing. Secrecy does that on its own. That same day, a second batch of documents was teased, suggesting Musk wasn't done. But the real question hung in the air: why Barrett? Why now? Whispers in political circles hinted that Musk had grown frustrated after a Supreme Court ruling against Neuralink, his controversial brain tech company, limiting its expansion into medical applications. Barrett had authored the majority opinion in that 5-4 decision, arguing it posed constitutional and ethical questions not yet resolved. Was this revenge cloaked in whistleblowing? Musk denied it. This is about the system, not personal grudges. It's about a future where innovation and fairness can coexist. As America debated, the pressure on Barrett intensified. Protests sprang up in front of federal buildings. Editorials on both sides of the aisle called for deeper inquiry into judicial ethics. Even the Wall Street Journal, typically reserved in criticism of conservatives, asked, "What else haven't we been told?" By week's end, Justice Barrett had canceled a scheduled commencement address at the University of Notre Dame. The official reason? Personal health and security concerns. But insiders said she was furious, reclusive, and seeking advice from Chief Justice John Roberts about how to proceed. Musk, meanwhile, had accepted an invitation to return to real time the following week, this time without Barrett. Bill Maher teased the episode with a characteristically sardonic tweet. Round 2. No robes, no rules. While the nation debated whether Elon Musk was a hero, a villain, or something in between, a quieter storm was brewing inside the hallowed halls of the Supreme Court. Behind the marble pillars and stained glass windows, the justices were deeply unsettled. It wasn't just about Justice Amy Coney Barrett's public humiliation, it was about precedent. Never before had a sitting justice of the United States Supreme Court been publicly exposed on live television in such a theatrical and politically charged way. The institution was built on quiet authority, opaque traditions, and an almost mythical distance from everyday public scrutiny. Musk had shattered that with a tap on a tablet. And more was coming. While Barrett remained out of the public eye, internal memos began to leak. A draft response authored by one of Barrett's clerks suggested that the justice felt personally betrayed, not just by Musk, but by Bill Maher, whom she had believed would moderate a thoughtful discussion. Instead, she now felt ambushed, weaponized, and broadcast without context. Maher, predictably, leaned in. "This isn't The View. If you want a safe space, don't come on my show," he said during a midweek segment. But privately, Maher wasn't so cavalier. Sources close to the production team confirmed that he hadn't seen the full extent of the material Musk brought onto the set. Elon had sent over a sanitized bullet point summary which his producers approved. The moment Musk opened his tablet and started scrolling through documents, even Maher's seasoned staff were caught off guard. And yet, there was a reason Maher didn't stop the broadcast. Despite his critiques of the far left, his public spats with wokeism, and his libertarian leanings, Maher had long held the belief that power, wherever it lies, must be challenged. That included the judiciary. "I'm not a Republican or a Democrat," Maher said in a follow-up show, "but I am pro-accountability. If you think that 9 unelected judges get to shape the future of 330 million Americans without some sunlight, you're kidding yourself. The second wave of documents Musk teased earlier finally hit the internet. This time, they included a whistleblower affidavit from a former law clerk who had served under Justice Barrett in 2022. The clerk, who remained anonymous, claimed that Barrett had privately coordinated with lobbyists on drafting language related to an upcoming decision on biometric data privacy, a case that directly impacted Tesla's competitor, Apple. The affidavit included timestamped call logs, calendar screenshots, and one particularly damning memo, a list of preferred legal phrasing sent from a private law group to Barrett's chambers weeks before oral arguments. Though it wasn't clear if any of the suggestions made it into the final opinion, the implication was enough. Was the Supreme Court for sale? The story sent shockwaves through Washington. Senator Josh Hawley, Republican Missouri, normally a staunch defender of Barrett, went on Fox News with a surprisingly nuanced take. I don't know if these documents are legit or not, but if they are, we need to remember it's not about right or left. It's about corruption versus the Constitution. Across the aisle, Senator Elizabeth Warren, Democrat, Massachusetts, pounced. This proves what many of us have been warning about: unregulated influence and shadow money poisoning the highest court in the land. It's time for structural reform. Meanwhile, inside Barrett's own camp, panic was rising. 2 of her top clerks resigned, citing personal reasons. Behind closed doors, Barrett held a tense meeting with Chief Justice Roberts and Justice Clarence Thomas, both of whom had also faced scrutiny in recent months over undisclosed gifts and luxury vacations. Roberts, the institutionalist, warned them all. This court depends on public trust. If that dies, so does everything we've built. Barrett was shaken. She wasn't new to criticism, but this was different. She wasn't being challenged for her judicial philosophy, she was being accused of corruption. Desperate to shift the narrative, Barrett's PR team, yes, even Supreme Court justices now hired crisis PR, crafted a strategy. The plan? Schedule a primetime interview with someone friendly but serious like Megyn Kelly or Brett Baier. Set the record straight. Humanize Barrett. Frame the documents as manipulated. Discredit Musk. But Musk had one final play. 2 days before the interview was set to air, Musk posted a tweet that lit up the internet. I have the unedited Zoom call. Airing it on X this Thursday. Let America decide. The post was viewed 24 million times in under an hour, Thursday night, 8 p.m. Eastern. America tuned in, not to cable news, not to Netflix, not to Hulu, but to X, Elon Musk's social media platform, now rebranded and reshaped as a direct-to-audience broadcast empire. The screen went black for a few seconds. Then came the familiar chime of a Zoom call connecting. And then, Justice Amy Coney Barrett. In the top corner sat a name tag that read Barrett Chambers, Private, timestamped October 19, 2022. Opposite her on the screen were 4 blurred participants with minimal identifiers, initials like JD, LPO, and MK, Federal Counsel. Their voices, however, were clear and the conversation was damning. For the next 47 minutes, viewers watched Barrett engage in what appeared to be an off-the-record legal strategy session with individuals connected to a Washington, D.C. lobbying firm. The subject? A looming Supreme Court case on data privacy protections and liability for tech companies. Early in the recording, one participant discussed how a certain interpretation of third-party data access could shield companies from consumer liability and how they hoped the court would see it that way. Barrett, in response, didn't push back. In fact, she nodded and said, "That's certainly a line of reasoning we can explore. What I'd need is framing that avoids the perception of corporate deference." One participant responded with a chuckle. "We'll handle the optics. Just need the opinion to reflect a balanced precedent." The Zoom call ended with pleasantries. No overt promises. No money discussed. But the tone, the alignment, and the coordination were unmistakable. Immediately following the broadcast, all hell broke loose. X erupted. Conservative and liberal pundits scrambled to post their takes. Prominent legal analysts like Preet Bharara and Alan Dershowitz weighed in within minutes. The former called it an erosion of judicial boundaries we thought untouchable. The latter cautioned about the danger of selectively leaking content with no legal context. Cable news networks, caught flat-footed, pivoted coverage from international conflict to the Barrett Zoom tapes. The phrase became a cultural shorthand within hours. Justice Barrett's team issued a midnight statement calling the footage selectively edited, contextually misleading, and part of a tech billionaire revenge fantasy driven by failed regulatory rulings. But the backlash had already grown teeth. Congressional hearings were announced the next morning. Senate Judiciary Chair Dick Durbin promised a full probe into the impartiality of the Supreme Court and the possibility of coordinated external influence. House Republicans, meanwhile, split between defending Barrett and calling for a more expansive judicial ethics reform package. Even Chief Justice John Roberts couldn't stay silent anymore. He issued a rare solo statement. The integrity of this court is not above criticism, but it must be above manipulation. A full internal review is underway. Musk responded within seconds. Internal reviews without external accountability are just cover-ups. Try again, Chief. Meanwhile, the streets of D.C. were boiling. Protesters gathered outside the Supreme Court building, some carrying signs with slogans like "Robes are not armor" and "Bot bench equals broken justice." Others simply carried iPads playing the Zoom call on loop. And then came the unexpected. Justice Sonia Sotomayor issued a written opinion, not about a case, but about the moment. In a guest editorial published in The Atlantic, she wrote, "What the public has seen this week is deeply troubling. It is not enough for us to say, trust us. We must show why we are worthy of that trust." Even Bill Maher, now swept into the story, released a rare pre-show monologue on YouTube that broke from his normal sarcasm. "This isn't about ideology anymore. It's about whether the people interpreting our laws are playing by them. I didn't bring the bomb. Musk did. But we all watched it go off. In the background, whispers began about Barrett's future. Impeachment? Unlikely. It had never been successfully done in U.S. history for a Supreme Court justice. But recusal from future tech-related cases? Loss of influence inside the court? Permanent reputational damage? Those were now real, tangible consequences. But Musk wasn't finished. He made one final post before disappearing from the public for several days. The real secret? This isn't just Barrett. She's not the only one. The real story's just starting. Hashtag the others. By now, Elon Musk had become less a tech mogul and more a digital insurgent. He was no longer just reshaping the internet, he was reshaping American governance, or at least how it was perceived by millions. His teaser tweet, "She's not the only one. Hashtag the others," went viral overnight. The next morning, all of Washington was on edge. Every justice, every federal agency, every major corporate boardroom, and every journalist with a source inside the Beltway was waiting for the next detonation. And then it came. Musk published a 92-page encrypted archive file on X titled Dark Docket Volume 1, along with the decryption key. You want transparency? Here it is. No spin. Just documents. Inside were files implicating 3 additional sitting Supreme Court justices in various forms of soft influence and coordination. Some were lighter, emails with donor-class think tanks discussing future legislation, dinners with corporate counsel from litigants with pending cases, but others were more troubling. In one file, Justice Neil Gorsuch appeared to have reviewed draft language of a majority opinion with a former legal advisor now working for a lobbying group. Another exposed a luxury Alaskan fishing trip Justice Samuel Alito took with executives from a firm involved in a future EPA case. None of it proved bribery. But all of it pointed to access and influence, a shadow world where elite justices regularly brushed shoulders with stakeholders away from cameras, court transcripts, and accountability. The shockwaves were seismic. The media implodes. Every network, every podcast, and every headline from the New York Times to the Daily Wire carried the banner, "Crisis of the Court." Bill Maher aired a special live segment that Friday titled, "The Empire Robed," where he opened with this line. Turns out Lady Justice wasn't blind. She just had selective vision and high-powered reading glasses funded by a donor pack. Even Tucker Carlson from his own platform begrudgingly gave Musk credit. Elon Musk has done more to reveal the rot in D.C. than the last 5 inspector generals combined. Senator Rand Paul called for immediate passage of the Judicial Transparency Act, which had sat dormant for years. The bill proposed financial disclosure rules, real-time docket transparency, and an independent judicial ethics board. Surprisingly, it gained bipartisan traction. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez held a joint press conference with Republican Matt Gaetz, yes, that unlikely duo, to announce a joint congressional oversight committee. You know things are bad when we're standing together, AOC quipped. And even worse when we agree, Gates shot back. In the middle of it all, Justice Barrett finally reemerged, not on television, not in a podcast, but through a written judicial recusal statement filed quietly on the court's docket. It read, "Given the nature of recent disclosures and the public discourse surrounding my impartiality, I recuse myself from all pending and future cases involving technology, data privacy, or parties connected to relevant disclosures." The admission, while not an apology, was seen by many as a concession of ethical failure. Elon Musk responded with a single post. One down. More to go. Americans were split as always. To some, Musk was a megalomaniac weaponizing data for personal feuds. To others, he was a folk hero pulling back the velvet curtain hiding America's legal aristocracy. Polls showed that trust in the Supreme Court had dropped to 32%, the lowest in modern history. But for the first time, there was movement. Not just public outcry, but legislation, investigations, coalitions that would have been unthinkable a year ago. And Musk? He left the country for a digital sabbatical, traveling to Singapore and then Iceland. But before his departure, he posted one last message from the tarmac of his private jet. It was a video, a deepfake satire, where a cartoon version of Amy Coney Barrett was seen dancing with lobbyists in robes to the soundtrack of Money, Money, Money by ABBA. Underneath it, the caption read, "Never forget, power without accountability is just corruption in a robe." Months later, Congress passed the Judicial Integrity and Transparency Act. All justices were now required to disclose meetings, gifts, and communications with outside parties. An independent watchdog was established. Barrett never resigned, but she never regained the influence she once wielded behind the scenes. And the court? It moved a little closer to the light. Meanwhile, a new mural appeared in downtown Los Angeles. It depicted Elon Musk as a modern-day Prometheus, not stealing fire, but wires from Mount Olympus, dragging them down to Earth for all to see. And across America, a new phrase was born. Don't robe the truth.